Is Trevor Rogers back? Let's break it down on Fantasy Baseball today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Thursday, September 1st. It's already September. I am Frank Sandoval, joined by Scott White, and let's take a look at Trevor Rogers, who made a strong return up against the Tampa Bay Rays. He goes 6 innings, 1 run with 5 strikeouts. Lots to like here, Scott. 12 swinging strikes. He was throwing a bunch of first pitch strikes to opposing batters. What did you see from Trevor Rogers? Do you think he's a must-add at 48% rostered?
I think he's pretty close. It's easier to say that for a pitcher because in points leagues, you can never have enough pitchers, and points leagues are generally the format that we struggle with whether or not to add a guy. So I think it's pretty close for Trevor Rogers, because let's not forget this was part of a breakout sophomore trio that included Shane McClanahan and Alek Manoah. Like, people were rating them similarly. Trevor Rogers with those two coming into the year, and things went great for the other two. They went very poorly for Trevor Rogers, to the point that this was actually his best start of the season. It was only his second quality start of the season, and I would say it was overall his best start. But that's encouraging in its own right? Fresh off an IL stint, his last minor league rehab start, 6 no-hit innings with 12 strikeouts and 24 swinging strikes. And then he comes in and does this. He said the IL stint gave him a chance to reset mechanically, and he wasn't thinking so much about mechanics in this start. So it's pretty encouraging. He did give up a lot of hard contact. That's the only knock on this start for Trevor Rogers. And so, it's a risk. It's a risk. This late in the year, you try to not take such big risks, but if you've lost pitchers to injury, Rogers could turn out to be a godsend.
Yeah.
Or a disaster. It's hard to say.
I mean, you want to talk about injuries, Scott. Verlander, McClanahan, Zach Wheeler, Nestor Cortez, Tony Gonsolin. There's so many injuries. We need some help, and I think Trevor Rogers might be able to provide that. How about Patrick Sandoval, who had another strong start against the Yankees? He went 7 innings of 2-run ball with 7 strikeouts, 17 swinging strikes, and over his last 3 starts, he has allowed just 3 runs, and he has just 3 walks. So 2 key aspects there for him. 67% rostered, Scott. Would you rather have him or Trevor Rogers?
So that's a really tough call, because Patrick Sandoval, I mean, the skill indicators have been great all along. So where has this performance been all year? Just the last 3 starts, if we could just size him up on that. Okay, great. 3 earned runs in 22 innings with 21 strikeouts versus 3 walks. I think the key for Sandoval is keeping the walks down. And I have little faith that he's going to continue with that, just because he's done it over the last 3 starts. But his next start lines up to be against the Tigers. And so I think that makes it pretty obvious which direction you should go between Sandoval and Rogers.
All right, let's talk about the new kids on the block. Gunnar Henderson, in his debut, hits a home run in his second at-bat. He goes 2 for 4 with that home run, which traveled 429 feet. He had 3 batted balls over 97 miles per hour. He's 45% rostered. But, Scott, I do think there is some concern about playing time down the stretch. Gunnar Henderson's a left-handed batter, has struggled against lefties in the minors, and as we saw with Corbin Carroll and the Diamondbacks on Wednesday night, he didn't play, and they want to keep that rookie eligibility for next year, so I think they're going to hold him out maybe every 3 or 4 games. So how are you handling these two, Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson?
So I think they're definite must-haves in a Roto League, where you got the extra outfield spots to fill, an extra middle infield spot to fill. No questions asked, even if they are going to sit with some frequency. The upside is too great, and when the alternatives aren't as great as in a league where you just start 9 hitters. In those leagues where you start 9 hitters, look, the upside still makes them worth pursuing. I think in Corbin Carroll's case, I'm even more optimistic. Obviously, he fills the weaker position outfield. Although Gunnar Henderson did make his debut at third base and may end up spending the majority of time there in the majors, and may pick up eligibility there and not just shortstop. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, If high profile call-ups are going to become the norm in September because of changes to the CBA and certain incentives built in for to encourage that, the key is going to be that these players don't use up their rookie eligibility in September. And that's going to mean that the Orioles and Diamondbacks are going to have to monitor Henderson's and Corbin Carroll's playing time very closely, probably sitting them against tougher left-handers since they're both left-handed hitters, and maybe even some right-handers. They're going to have to stay on top of it. The key number is 130. If they exceed that, then they lose their rookie eligibility. Run 130 at bats, to be specific.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, I did just want to mention quickly, if you need saves in a deeper league, Jimmy Herget now has the past 3 saves for the Angels, and he's only 3% rostered. So looks like he might be the preferred option there, and he is widely available. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.